Hello dear aspirants, we are ready with must-read articles for 1st February 2025. 1st February newspaper is very important. There are so many points from economic survey from both mains and prelims point of view, especially GS3 mains answers and GS1 society answers also, right? And lot of few concepts introduced by or brought by or mentioned by economic survey that we will discuss from prelims point of view. So please listen to today's newspaper, extremely important, okay? So let's start with the front page. We will not waste any time today and we'll just discuss it fast. So economics fundamentals robust amid strong downside survey. So it's a article talking about broad things, right? It comes under GS paper 3, Indian economy, issues related to growth and development. So what this article is saying that India's economy is expected to grow from 6.3 to 6.8%, okay, as per the economic survey, right? So there are several issues. Urban demand are still uncertain. Domestic political timetables were also the reason. Global uncertainties and overcapacity have been there, right? So that's why things were unstable. But the article is saying to achieve the developed country status by 2014, which we are calling Viksit Bharat, we need 8% growth for a decade, 8% growth for at least a decade, and 6.5% growth will not be sufficient if we want to achieve Viksit Bharat by 2047, right? And also the investment rate from the current rate, 31% of GDP to 35% of GDP is required as investment rate to reach the Viksit Bharat by 2047. So, right, so we'll have to take a lot of efforts to reach there, right? So, let's move to the next article. We'll be discussing economic survey in later pages in detail. This is an article also important. SC leaves decision on VIP darshan at temples to states, right? So, VIP darshan is seen by this petitioner as a thing of inequality, right? People are not being seen as equal in front of temples. So, Supreme Court has agreed with the petitioner, but is not taking any it's not making any orders. It's giving rights to states so that they can create an order. So they make some rules and regulations taking care of this, right? The Supreme Court said that VIPs need not be given special treatment for entering temples, but also refuse to entertain or pass any orders on a petition challenging the practice of preferential darshan at religious places, right? It has left the issue to the states to deal with it, right? So this person is saying that discrimination solely on the basis of how deep one's pockets are was amount to violation of fundamental rights, that too fundamental right of equality and dignity, and the right to freely practice religion, Article 14, Article 21 and Article 25, right? So people of all caste, communities, classes and sections of society should be treated equally and provided a fair and equal opportunity to pray, right? So this is what this article is saying. Good article, good point. Let's move to the next article. Study finds microplastics in cities' groundwater, right? So microplastics is a unwanted, a pollutive thing, right? So it comes under GS paper 1, changes in critical geographical features, here being groundwater, water bodies, right? So microplastics has been found across the capital, Delhi, and they use a lot of groundwater. The government also use a lot of groundwater through bore wells, and they supply to meet part of the city's drinking water. So there's a lot of issues. So groundwater has been polluted with microplastics due to leaching effect from the river, right? So what are microplastics? They are small particles or fragments of plastic less than 5 mm diameter, less than 5 mm in diameter. This is what is definition of microplastics. A 2021 UNEP report, United Nations Environment Program report, says from pollution to solutions, had warned that chemicals in microplastics are associated with serious health impacts, especially in women, changes to human genetics, brain development and respiration rates, right? And they microplastics also absorb other chemicals along with it, becoming even more toxic in nature. Okay, so they have been found in various human organs, even in the placenta of newborns. This was the report by Terry. Okay, very important. You should know about microplastics. Question can come in prelims and mains both. Let's move to the next article. Yeah, so as an example of ghost beneficiaries in governance question, this is mainly mains related article, okay? So forgery ghost applicants, fake ration cards, mar government scheme for women, right? It comes under GS paper 2, governance, example of ghost beneficiary. So the Mukhyamantri Samman Yojana, the flagship Maiya Samman Yojana, the Mukhyamantri Maiya Samman Yojana is state government scheme, Jharkhand state government scheme, which was as a monthly aid to women in 18 to 50 age group, okay. But what has been found, 11,200 fake applications were found, okay. So that's a big issue. And scheme was launched this year, 2024. Earlier it was 1,000 per month, but it was increased to 2,500 per month. It is being given to the beneficiaries, to people who are not the correct beneficiary. So it can be used as example of ghost beneficiary. Next article, again a very important article. From fundamental rights point of view, Karnataka decides to allow terminally ill to die with dignity. This comes under GS paper 2, fundamental rights, article 21. Right? So in a historic move, the Karnataka Health Department has issued an order to implement the Supreme Court's ruling allowing terminally ill patients to die with dignity. Karnataka is second state after Kerala to implement this, okay. So with people with no hope of recovery, or for those who are in persistent vegetative state and where the patients no longer benefits from life-sustaining treatment, those people come under it, right? So this Supreme Court verdict was given 2 years back, January 24, 2023, where they said right to life guaranteed under Article 21 covers, encompass the right to die with dignity also, right? So you should know about passive euthanasia and euthanasia's concept. Now this is India's achievement in the world's place in environment and conservation. India's tiger population rose 30% over 2 decades, recovery boosted by strong legislative framework. This comes under GS paper 3, conservation measures for wild animals, right? So, what is that strong legislative framework that they are mentioning? This is Wildlife Protection Act 1972, Forest Conservation Act, and National Tiger Conservation Authority, which together has been able to achieve this kind of success, right? And they are also saying that the region with low dependence on forest, okay, region which has other means of earning income and low dependence on forest have better socioeconomic conditions, have witnessed higher tiger recolonization rates, whereas the areas which have more poverty, Naxal affected regions like Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand have experienced tiger decline. So it is not uniformly increasing. Some states are increasing, some states are declining also, but overall an increase, okay. India is home to 70% of the world's tiger population. Let's move to the next article. Okay, so this again talking about economy in short, right? So what the article comes under again GS paper 3, economic data. So the article is saying that a lot of issues that Indian government is facing, like domestic demand is not, recently the economy was being driven by two things, that is domestic demand and public sector capital expenditure, right? And private investment was the thing which was keeping us behind. They were not investing in as was desired by them, right? So government capex increased at a compounded annual growth rate of 16% and household investments by 12%, whereas corporate outlays was up only by 6%. Okay, you can see less than half of household and government, right? So economic survey is saying that it is critical for the government to get out of the way of businesses. So it is recommending that government should use the way of deregulation. It should not interfere and intervene much in the business. And by undoing, so it is critical for the government to get out of the way of businesses by undoing regulations that are tantamount to micromanagement. So government should leave micromanagement and bridge the trust deficit between authorities and citizens, right? And there is a play to minimize controls that distort markets and adopt a minimum necessary, maximum feasible approach to regulation, seeking the same accountability from regulators that is stipulated for the constituent. So level playing field between small firms and bigger firms. This is what they are saying, and deregulation is what, it's not liberalization but some form of liberalization that they're expecting here. Let's move to the next article. So this article, a note for New Delhi on dealing in Trump era, comes under GS paper 2, bilateral relations between India and USA. So we have recently covered a lot of articles about USA where Trump has come and therefore and the rightist policies are talking about make America's great again, America's golden age, and he has, as soon as he was sworn in and became the president again, he's released, he signed a lot of executive orders, which was quite extreme in nature. But some things are good news for India, like S. Jaishankar, our India's external affairs minister, was invited to Trump inauguration along with other Quad foreign minister. But there are few issues that India may face, right? What are those issues? Mr. Trump's extreme measures against the immigration, right? So his raids and arrests by the Immigration and Custom Enforcement Agency is happening. So India will also be affected because India is the second largest group of citizens being granted US citizenship legally after Mexico and have cornered a predominant, that is 70% of the share of H-1B visa. Right. So as per a Pew research, around 7.25 lakh Indians are illegal migrants in USA. So certainly there will be some action against them, as it is happening for Cambodia, Mexico and things like that. So this will not just affect blue collar workers, like, it will, the immigrant thing, the illegal immigrant thing will affect blue collar workers, but they're also targeting the white collar job people. Because, the middle level managers, engineers and professionals, because he has struck down he's trying to end citizenship birthrights. So people who are shifting from India as middle level engineers there and want their children to become US citizens, it will become difficult for them to do so. Though his, order is right now not, it has been stopped by the court or federal court, but that Mr. Trump is giving hint that he is not encouraging citizenship for outsiders, right? So it will affect all of us. And even in past, he has released very extreme measures, like during the previous Trump, the authority, they had withdrawn the generalized system of preferences status of India, which was for developing countries, saying India is now emerging country and one of the BRICS nation, right? And right now, they through executive orders, Trump has left a lot of deals of global tax deal of OECD, Paris deal, and several deals he's leaving, right? So multilateral order is being affected. So the new thing that he is doing is launch of the $500 billion target AI infrastructure project by Mr. Trump. So it's going to be a huge project, okay? So it can lead to some labor disruptions. AI may replace some kind of jobs, like Google CEO Sundar Pichai is saying 25% of new code is being done already by the AI, right? And Mark Zuckerberg is saying that mid-level engineers will be replaced, right? So even Economic Survey has recommended in the same newspaper that we don't need to be scared by the AI, but we need to train ourselves to adapt to it for the new jobs that it will be providing, right? So India has to do something like that. Let's move to the next article. 4 years on, Myanmar and its continuing nightmare. So, this comes under GS paper 2, India and neighborhood relations. And Myanmar is just our neighbor. So, whatever will be happening will affect our northeastern states, okay? So, Myanmar Junta government has extended state of emergency by 6 months. That's the problem. So, this crisis began in early 2021 when the military did not like the results of the elections held in November 2022, in which Aung San Suu Kyi National League for Democracy won. So they did not allow it. They did the military coup on February 1, 2021, and since then, nation is fragmenting. There is no peace and stability. Economy is in ruins, and ultimately people are suffering. So this is clear that when democracy is not taken in right manner, when there are such coup and all, it affects the quality of life of people. People are not, in a good state of life when representative governments are sidelined. Okay, so can be used in essay, this example, and they are mentioning various ethnic armed organizations and people's defense forces which are on the border of India and Myanmar. Okay, so Myanmar's border with India and Bangladesh are now controlled by EAOs. An article is saying since right now there is lack of trust between India and China, India-Bangladesh relationships are also strained. So who will take care of Myanmar? So the article is saying maybe ASEAN people, of which Indonesia is a part, the ASEAN group of countries should try to make the situation better in Myanmar. Let's move to the next article. We'll directly go to the economic survey. Important pages, very important pages, right? So let's start with this article. Chief Economic Advisor calls for larger private sector role for economic growth. Okay, so he is saying that incremental deregulation is needed to spur domestic growth and easing rules that constrain small business. So deregulation, easing rules, convenience for small business to grow, that is what he is asking for. This comes under GS paper 3, economy, liberalization, deregulation. Okay, so GDP is expected to grow at 6.4%. We have already discussed, but we require 8%. We also require 35% of GDP as an investment to become Viksit Bharat. We have already discussed that also, right? So he is saying that his proposals of deregulation, right, would change rules at the state and local level that could help with time and the resource bandwidth, and which will lead to butterfly effect. Mention this word, butterfly effect, on innovation, entrepreneurship, and even employment generation. So deregulation, lack of regulation, lack of micromanagement will lead to prosperous MSMEs. That will lead to better innovation, entrepreneurship, and employment generation. Let's move to the next article. Now this article, higher profit share, stagnant wage growth, slowing economy, says economic survey. So it's saying corporates are growing in double-digit percentage, whereas the employment is not growing with that. It's going very, very low. So it will lead to a lot of inequality. That is what the article is discussing. This comes under GS paper 3, inclusive growth and issues arising out of it, right? So we need to deal with this inequality. Growth in corporate profits need to be commensurate with wages to boost economy. Sharp disparities between the two pose a risk to the economy by curbing demand, right? So disproportionate rise in corporate profits predominantly among large firms raises concern about income inequality. To secure long-term stability of the government and economy, a fair and reasonable distribution of income between capital and labor is very, very important. Okay. So they are also mentioning data that corporate profitability has reached to 15-year peak, till now, and right now their profit to GDP ratio is 4.8% in financial year 2024, highest since 2008. And one very important data that you should mention in any essay related to inequality is profits climbed 22.3% in financial year 2024 for corporates, but employment grew by mere 1.5%. Employment 1.5% and profits of corporate 22.3%. So look at the digit, 22 times more, right? Around 22 times more. So at the same time, employee expenses rose very less. So, and they have also, the Indian companies have achieved a stable EBITDA margin of 22%. If you know the full form of EBITDA, please write in the comments, okay? And I'll explain it to you tomorrow. So that is it for this article. Now this article is again talking about the economy of India and resources mobilization, where it is saying that India's equity market has rapidly grown after pandemic, but the debt market or the bond market remains under capitalized, okay? So India's corporate bond market stands at just 18% of the country's total GDP, in front of 80% in Korea and 36% in China. So too much of equity investment and less of bond market will not be very stable for our economy. Okay, so let's move to the next article. This is again a very important article. It talks about electric mobility. So it just doesn't talk about new types of automobiles. It also talks about environment friendly things. Okay. So indigenization and urgent task for India's electric mobility transition. So we'll have to start making it inside. Till we keep importing a lot of it, will depend a lot on China. And hence we'll have to run according to what China wants us to do. And it's a very, very important sector. So this comes under GS paper 3, automobiles, conservation, importance of, critical minerals, sustainable development. So we need, while electric mobility plays a key role in India's journey towards energy transition and diversification away from fossil fuels, as we have promised in climate deal, COP21, the country needs to be cautious about the extent of import that we are having in this area, especially China, right? And economic survey is also identifying that minerals crucial to EV manufacturing, electric vehicle manufacturing, are very scarcely available in India or processed in India and concentrated in few countries where China is dominating by large margin. Okay, so China is responsible for 65% of the world's output of nickel, 68% of cobalt, and 60% of lithium. Similarly, in rare earth minerals also, China contributes 63% of global mining and 90% of global processing in terms of output. Rare earth minerals, 60% of mining and 90% of output is all by China. So imagine the command it will have in the coming years of semiconductor battery related technologies. Okay, that's why lithium ion batteries will dominate the technologies. Demand is expected to grow at 23%, and lack of viable alternative battery technologies will make China even stronger. Okay, so Ministry of Mines, that's why in India also they are trying to do their best. Ministry of Mines have analyzed 33 critical minerals vital to India's economic growth 24 are currently at high risk of supply disruption, because China can stop the supply anytime it wants to, right? And China is anyways claiming our northeast, Arunachal, so it can use it against us very easily. And public transportation as an efficient vehicle for achieving electric mobility will be the best way. So these are the issues of electric mobility. Here there is a term called financialization. Excessive financialization can hurt India's economy, caution survey, right? So large part of recently, what's it? Financialization. You should know the term financialization from prelims point of view. Large part of the household savings heading to the stock market and increased retail investors, right? So excessive financialization can hurt the economy, and the costs may be particularly high for a low middle income country like India. Right, so financial market is what? The stock market, the debt market, the bond market, the commodity market. So all these are financial market. So one critical risk to guard against is the dominance of financial markets in shaping policy and macroeconomic outcomes is a phenomenon called financialization. That government is planning policy, thinking how the market will respond. So that is not good for the end customer, which is us, right? The ultimate end are we, how our life will change. That is more important than financial markets response to the budget. That's a very important point. So you should know the term financialization. Let's move to the next article. India should not shut coal plants without alternatives. So in economic survey is clearly saying that it should not shut its coal-fired plants for the sake of, for the climate change things, because recently a lot of bigger powers like Europe are investing in natural gas. US is investing in oil drilling project in the Alaska region. And so India shutting its coal projects is not making sense, because those projects were made in 2010 only. And if we start stopping it, the infrastructure will stay underutilized, okay? So it is not a good idea, but yeah, alternative energy should be, worked upon. The ambitious goal of achieving net zero emissions, they should try to work on, like battery storage, grid infrastructure, critical minerals. That should go on. But coal mining and coal plants should not be shut at the same time, at least in recent future, right? And it is also talking about congestion cost of managing a complex energy system incorporating fossil fuels and renewables. And secondly, a shift to renewable energy has also raised electricity prices. So there are certain benefits of coal plants, okay? And congestion cost comes in when the renewable energy we are trying to integrate in our grid. Okay, so let's move to the next page. Okay, so this article, survey snubs AI impact on workforce, says skilling could put Indians ahead. I just now mentioned in the opinion page, this comes under GS paper 3 employment. So economic survey is not scared of AI and how it will lead to job loss. It's saying instead we should adapt ourselves to the changing AI, right? So it is saying that upbeat tone, like in defiance of the concern, the AI could replace some jobs, particularly in information IT sector. The survey says the appropriate skilling would allow Indians to stay one step ahead of the technological developments, and harnessing AI would minimize or even eliminate the potential adverse impact on employment, right? Turning into force, instead it will become it will augment employment, right? It will be an employment augmenter. So this is important. AI research and development, that also India needs to do, where big firms in US are having an extremely high hand, right? So that is important. India needs to create a lot of jobs for the coming demography dividend. So Indian government should also invest a lot in AI, which they are doing. They have announced, right? So this article is very important. It was in the news as soon as the budget was released, right? Hostile work culture, long hours in office affecting mental health. A lot of people can relate, right? So this comes under GS paper 3, employment issues, and it also comes under issues related to society and phones. A lot of questions in GS paper 1 comes about how it is affecting teenagers, children, the phones and social media. This year also it has come, right? So the economic survey has targeted is saying overexposure to social media, lack of exercise, not spending enough time with one's family, and overwork hours are very bad for our mental well-being. Lifestyle choices, workplace culture, and family situations are the major reasons. It's also especially talking about children. The increase in mental health issues in children and adolescents is because of the overuse of the internet, especially social media. So phone-based childhood is rewiring their grown-up experience, right? So India's demographic dividend will be affected because it just doesn't depend on skill, education, physical health, but depends a lot on the mental health, right? So it's also saying the people who eat less ultra processed food have better mental well-being. So people who eat more of Lays and chips and processed food will have worse mental well-being, right? And they're also saying who rarely exercise, who don't exercise, and they don't have time to bond with the families, and they're spending all time on social media, are also having bad mental well-being. So they're encouraging some important measures like healthy pastimes such as meeting with friends, playing outside in the open, investing time in building close family bonds can go a long way. Okay, and it's also talking to impose health tax on ultra processed foods, right? And it's also saying Ministry of Health and Family Welfare should define nutrient threshold of sugar, salt and saturated fats to regulate advertising, adopt warning front of pack labels. Very important measures required today, very important, right? It will be useful in questions come about obesity in GS paper 2, right? It can be the solutions, and they have to impose stricter marketing restrictions on unhealthy food, right? So FSI should consider bringing ultra processed food under regulation with clear definition and standards. Okay, let's move to the next article. So MSMEs are favorite topic for UPSC. Regulatory framework holding back MSMEs, limiting growth innovation. So MSMEs employ 23 crore people in the country. It still faces a lot of regulatory challenges, right? And what are the issues? Low capital cost although these are benefits, low capital cost and economic growth and innovation, but they have less capital to invest in their infrastructure. That's the issue, right? So logic for staying small often is to remain under the regulatory radar and steer clear of the rules and labor and safety laws. So they try to remain small. So there is regulations are not imposed on them, but it affects the laborers only, right? The laws which are there for laborers is affecting the laborers who are working in MSMEs, right? So there are a lot of initiatives for them. Like government has collaborated with SIDBI for launching Udyam Assist platform in 2023. More than 2.39 crore informal micro enterprises have been formed. Goa and Tamil Nadu are good examples here because the launch of TREDS. What is TREDS? Trade Receivables E-Discounting System, where the MSME who has not received the money of its sale or export can use the trade receivables for getting credit, right? So this is used by Tamil Nadu and Goa a lot, right? There are other schemes also. RAMP program supporting MSMEs, equity funding to MSMEs, self-reliant India fund with corpus of 50,000 crore, 10,000 crore from the government and 40,000 from private, and micro and small enterprises cluster development program, MSE CDP, and common facility centers. Okay, so this article is slightly talking about how exorbitant private college fees deny underprivileged access to medical courses. So people from low strata are not able to become doctors because of very heavy fees of medical colleges. This issue is also pointed out by economic survey, issues related to health sector. So if question comes about health issues, you can say it's very inaccessible. It's not accessible to below lower middle class or middle class to become doctors these days, right? Though National Medical Commission is trying to work on it, but the skyrocketing fees are right now not under control, right? So 51% of undergraduate seats and 49% of proposed graduate seats are in the southern states. So there is regional inequality also along with the money inequality. So MSMEs we have discussed. Agriculture, this is agriculture related article where they have talked about, economic survey has talked about that agriculture has grown 5% annually from 2016-17 to 2020-23. So since last decade, agriculture is growing 5% per annum, right? It's also talking about that, a lot of fishery sector has the highest compounded annual growth rate at 13%, 13.67, and livestock at 12.99%. Agriculture income has also increased at 5.23% annually. So, agriculture is right now in a decent area, decent zone. Okay. So increase in employed workers points to entrepreneurship. This is surveys pointing that a lot of people are becoming self-employment and thus entrepreneurial skills are rising in the country. Okay, this reflects growing entrepreneurial activity and preference for flexible work arrangement. This is another important article that rural India is driving rise in female labor force participation. So when we are reading that this increase in female labor force participation rate, this is not city, these are not metropolitan areas, but rural areas where women are less educated, they are working more now. And instead of the more educated and more chances of having education women in the richer or in the urban areas. So that we need to know that FLFPR is being led by rural area. Let's move to the next article. The last article of the day, although it was a long article, a long video because of the economic survey news, right? So this is a good example how hockey is changing lives of tribal people who were living very poor lives. So when women take center stage, meet the agents of change in Sundargarh, Odisha. So hockey has transformed the lives of many underprivileged tribal people in this Odisha district. After the inventions of the Women's Hockey India League, their dreams are now bigger. So you can say how some sports are changing life for women, and tribal lives are getting improved, right? So there are a lot of stories of some girls, whose life became better. You can use them in the anecdotes or starting anecdote of essay also, right? So for the underprivileged, the cradle of hockey in Odisha, the sport introduced by missionaries, is changing their life. Further boost to the household economy of selected few, and their life is improving, right? That's it for 1st February. Thank you.